Now this section covers the importance of layers and how it separates traditional and digital media. So what exactly is a layer? You can think of a layer as a transparent sheet of paper that you can add content to. And then from there you can go ahead and add more layers to stack upon, whether it be a below or above, rearrange them, or merge them together as you like to create a final image. And to better illustrate that, let's focus on the handout that goes along with this tutorial and focus on the top section. And in this example, we have 3 green pillars, each of a different shade, and each was created on its own layer. So when viewing the image, the green pillars seem to lie on top of each other quite nicely. But if you can imagine turning the different layers at an angle, like you can see below, then you can start to see all the layers individually and how they cover up each other depending on the layer order. So a layer on the top, which is our dark green foreground pillar, will be seen in front of all the layers underneath of it. So you can start to think of all these different layers as transparent sheets of paper that you can go ahead and rearrange however you like depending on what layers you want to be seen on top of other layers. So now let's jump into Photoshop and get ourselves more familiar with the Layers menu. So the Layers menu is a floating window, and if you ever need to find it or if you can't see it, you can always go to this top menu bar under Window, and it's under the name Layers. So since I have it checked, it's already out here. I'm going to go ahead and put the other floating windows aside so we can focus just on the Layers menu. So when there is no canvas to be worked upon, the Layers menu is kind of useless. So let's go ahead and make a new canvas. Choose OK. And now you can see how a background layer has popped up, and you may have also noticed that there's a lock icon on that layer. And this represents that you can lock certain elements in your layers like your position, pixels, and transparent pixels. But since that limits the amount of editing we can do to that layer, you can go ahead and change it to just a basic layer. And to do that, you just double click it, and it'll say new layer, layer 0. Choose OK. You can see how the background naming went away, and also the lock went away with it. So now the layer 0 is just a blank white canvas, and the layer's visibility, so this eyeball icon, shows you whether or not the layer is visible. So you can see how you turn the eyeball off, and the white canvas has gone away, and then you turn it back on, and the white canvas reappears. So now let's go ahead and add a new layer, and to do that, you choose the post-it note icon on the very bottom of the Layers menu. And you can see how it created layer 1 above the original layer. So now if I grab my brush tool and draw a red circle, you can see how it'll just be on layer 1. So if I turn the layer's visibility on and off with that eyeball, you can see how just the red dot will be on and off. So let's create another new layer, and let's do another color, and we'll draw it on top of that red layer. Now you can see how if I hide the blue layer, the red half of the circle that's covered by the blue is still intact on that layer. But let's say you wanted the contents of layer 1 to be on top of the contents of layer 2. So in this case we want the red circle to be seen on top of the blue circle. We'd have to rearrange the layer order. So to do that, it's really easy. All you do is you grab one of the layers, you click and drag it to wherever you want it to be seen. So since we want it on top of this blue circle, you have to wait until you see that line appear above it and then let go. And now layer 1 is above layer 2. And if you end up working with a lot of different layers, you're going to want to start naming them so you don't get lost. So to rename a layer, you double click on the layer and then name it something that will give you an idea of what's inside of the layer. So this one I would name blue circle, and the top one I would name red circle. So let's go ahead and add one more layer. So let's say we wanted a new layer that was below the red circle but above the blue circle. What I would do is I would choose the blue circle layer and then choose the create new layer icon. Because whenever you create a new layer, it'll create a new layer above the layer you have selected. So I'm going to name this one yellow circle, and then go ahead and add in a yellow circle. So then from here, if you notice, you can start grouping the different layers. You can go ahead and then create a folder to put your different layers in. And this usually will help if you have a lot of layers and you want to stay organized. So to do that, I'm going to grab the red circle layer because I want to make a folder above that layer, and choose this folder icon down here. And you can see how it creates a group. So nothing is currently inside of the group if you toggle on and off that arrow. So if we want the 3 circles in that group, you grab one layer, hold shift, and then grab all the different layers that you want included, and you can see how they're all highlighted blue, and then grab and drag them inside of the group one. And now when you toggle on and off that arrow, you can see how they're all included in the folder and how it definitely saves space on the layer menu. And just like you could rename a layer, to rename a group, you just double click it and rename it. So now that we know how to create new layers and folders, how would we go about deleting them? Well, you can either select it and then choose delete on your keyboard, or you can grab that layer down to this trash can down at the bottom. So now that you have a basic understanding of layers, let's look at some of the neat things you can do within them. So let's say you wanted the red circle to be about half opacity. You can go ahead and select the red circle layer, choose this opacity slider bar up here, and you can change the amount of that red circle that is seen. And you can see how then the layers underneath of it become visible because the red circle layer's opacity is going down. So if I put it about halfway, you can see how now we have orange and purple created. And changing the layer's opacity really helps when you have a layer that may be just a bit too intense and you just want to lower the opacity on it to give it a more subtle effect. So now to the left of the opacity slider bar is the layer blend mode. So let's change the opacity back to 100%. And every new layer will be set to normal. But if you click on it, you can see all the different layer options that you have for you. And I would go ahead and experiment to see what each of them are and what kind of effect they give off. But let's say we wanted this red circle to have an overlay effect. Choose overlay, and you can see how it'll affect the colors underneath of it, and it really makes them more intense, more vivid. So with those different blend modes, you can create some really cool effects. And speaking of effects, if you look at the bottom of your layers menu bar, it has an FX option. If you click it, you can see all the different options it has available for you. So let's say we wanted to add a drop shadow. Let's click drop shadow, and then the layer style menu will pop up. So from here you can see how it has all these different options you can go ahead and play with, and each of these have their own subcategories that you can go ahead and edit as well. But let's say we just wanted a drop shadow. We just go to the drop shadow, make sure it's checked, and then start editing with the different options it gives you. And you can see on the canvas it'll edit it right away, and it'll only edit the red circle layer. Choose OK. And when you do that, now it has an FX layer effect added to it. And if you seem to notice that that's taking up a lot of room, you can click the arrow on the far right, and that way it'll hide the effect without getting rid of it. So there's a lot to understand with layers, but I recommend really playing with the different options and settings that they have available for you, because once you become more familiar working with layers, it makes it that much easier and a little bit more fun working in digital art. So thanks for checking out this tutorial on understanding the basic of layers, and everything that was covered in the tutorial is covered in the handout. And in the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at understanding lighting and how you build values.